The worn leather wallet lay abandoned near a maintenance corridor, just another piece of forgotten debris in the endless flow of travelers passing through Harmony Point Station. Kaida almost walked past it during her evening patrol. Her amber eyes caught the glint of something metallic beneath the brown leather, and years of security training made her stop. She picked it up with clawed fingers, scales along her forearms catching the artificial light. Dragons and their hybrid descendants rarely lost things. Their long lives taught them to be careful, methodical. Humans, though, they scattered possessions like seeds in wind, always rushing, always careless. Kaida had returned dozens of human belongings during her 3 years as a junior security officer. The wallet felt heavier than it should. She opened it to find identification, expecting the usual quick scan and return protocol. The ID card showed a human male named David Foster, age 37, registered trader. Standard information. But behind the ID, pressed against the leather, were photographs. Real printed photographs, not digital files. Kaida paused. Photographs meant something important to humans. They only printed what they wanted to hold. The first photo showed David Foster with a young girl, maybe 8 years old. Both were smiling. The girl had dark hair and bright eyes, holding up a toy spaceship. The second photo looked similar, same location, but the girl appeared thinner. Her smile seemed forced. The third photo made Kaida's breath catch. The girl was in a medical bed, tubes connected to her small arms. She was still smiling, but her eyes looked tired. So tired. Kaida spread the remaining contents on a nearby bench. More photos, each showing the girl growing progressively weaker. Between them were handwritten notes on scraps of paper, edges worn from constant handling. The handwriting was messy, desperate. Lissara route, outer rim markets. Trader said maybe Keswick sector. Dr. Ramesh thinks 2 months. Need faster ship. Borrowed money from Otto, must find it, must. Mira has nightmares. Told her daddy will fix it. Have to fix it. The notes continued, a paper trail of desperation. Calculations of fuel costs, crossed out locations, contact names with lines through them. Failed leads. Each note represented hope that died and was reborn in the next line. At the bottom of the stack, one note stood out, written in darker ink, more recent. Lysera route confirmed. Planet Dravon, volcanic region, grid coordinates 847 Alpha. 3 weeks travel. Mira has 8 weeks, maybe less. Last chance. This has to work. Kaida gathered everything carefully, her hands steadier than her thoughts. She had processed thousands of lost items. She never read personal notes. It violated privacy protocols. But something about the photos, about that little girl's deteriorating smile, had pulled her deeper than she intended. She activated her wristcom and accessed station records. David Foster had departed 3 days ago on a small cargo vessel. Destination logged as Outer Rim, unspecified. His ship signature showed he had left in a hurry, filed minimal flight plans. He was gone, racing toward Dravon, racing against time itself. Kaida checked medical records next. Station policy normally prevented access, but lost property connected to medical cases allowed limited searches. She found the entry immediately. Mira Foster, age 8, admitted to station medical ward 7 weeks ago. Diagnosis: cellular degradation syndrome. Prognosis: terminal without Lysera root treatment. Estimated time: 6 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. 3 days already gone while David searched for the one thing that could save his daughter. And his research notes, his carefully gathered coordinates, his last hope, sat in a lost wallet on a security bench light years away. Kaida's people lived for centuries. Dragon hybrids could expect 300 years, full dragons even longer. 8 weeks meant nothing in the vast span of a dragon life. Barely a breath, barely a moment. But for humans, 8 weeks could be everything. For this human child, it was all the time she had left in the universe. She should log the wallet and send notification to David Foster's registered contacts. Protocol was clear. Security officers did not leave their posts for personal matters. They did not get involved in civilian problems. Her superior, Ryu, had made that especially clear regarding humans. They burn bright and fast, Kaida, he had said during her first week. Don't waste your long life trying to save their short ones. You'll drive yourself mad watching them die. Kaida looked at the photos again. Mira Foster holding her toy spaceship. Mira Foster in a medical bed. Mira Foster smiling despite everything because her father told her he would fix it. The medical ward was in Section 7, 12 minutes away by transit tube. Kaida checked her duty schedule. Her shift ended in 4 hours. She could deliver the wallet to the child, explain that her father would be contacted. That was within protocol, barely. Ryu would disapprove, but he could not formally discipline her for returning lost property to family members. She sealed the wallet in an evidence bag and marked it for personal delivery. As she continued her patrol, checking corridor seals and monitoring crowd flow, her mind kept returning to those photos. To that smile that got smaller with each image. Dragons prided themselves on logic, on emotional control developed over centuries of life. Kaida had been taught that shorter-lived species felt things too intensely because they lacked perspective. Humans especially, living barely long enough to gain wisdom before age claimed them. Their emotions were considered excessive, almost childish. But looking at those notes, at a father's handwriting growing more frantic with each failed lead, Kaida wondered if perhaps intensity was not a weakness. Perhaps knowing your time was short made every moment matter more. Perhaps humans loved harder because they understood, truly understood, that everything ended. Her shift finally concluded. She changed out of her security uniform and took the transit tube to Section 7. The medical ward smelled of antiseptic and recycled air. Human medical staff moved between rooms with practiced efficiency. Kaida approached the main desk, wallet in hand. "I need to see Mira Foster," she said. "I have something that belongs to her father." The nurse, an older human woman with gray hair, looked at the wallet and then at Kaida. Something sad flickered across her face. "Room 247, but keep it brief. She tires easily." Room 247 was small, dominated by medical equipment that beeped softly. The girl from the photos lay in the bed, smaller than Kaida expected. Humans always looked fragile, but this child seemed made of paper, as if a strong wind might blow her away. Despite this, when Mira saw Kaida enter, she smiled. The same smile from the photos, smaller now but genuine. "Are you a dragon?" Mira asked, her voice quiet but curious. "A real one?" "Half-dragon," Kaida replied, moving closer. "My mother was human. That's amazing. I've never met a dragon before." Mira tried to sit up, but the effort clearly cost her. "Are you here to check on me?" "The doctors said I'm doing okay." "Well, as okay as I can be." Kaida held out the wallet. "I found this during my security patrol. It belongs to your father." The change in Mira's expression was immediate. Color drained from her already pale face. "Dad's wallet? But he needed that. He left 3 days ago. All his research notes—" "They're all here," Kaida confirmed, opening it to show the papers. Tears filled Mira's eyes. "He has to find the Lysara route, he has to. Without those coordinates, without knowing where to look." She pressed her hands to her face. "He's lost out there. He's searching blind, and I'm running out of time, and it's all because he dropped his stupid wallet, and now he's gonna fail, and it's not his fault, but I'm going to die." Anyway, the words tumbled out in a rush. 8 years of life condensed into one moment of terrible understanding. Kaida stood frozen. She had expected sadness. She had not expected this raw, complete comprehension of mortality from someone so young. "I'm sorry," Mira whispered, wiping her eyes. "I'm not supposed to cry. Dad says I need to stay strong. But he's been gone 3 days and he must be so scared trying to remember everything, and I just want him to come home." Kaida sat in the chair beside the bed. "Your father. Tell me about him." "He's the best dad in the whole galaxy," Mira said immediately. "He tells me stories about the planets he visits. He brings me rocks from different worlds. He says when I get better, he'll take me to see real nebulas, not just pictures. We're going to travel together. What else? He can't cook. We eat ration packs mostly, but he pretends they're fancy meals with made-up names. He does voices for all my stuffed animals. He falls asleep reading to me and I have to wake him up." Mira smiled through tears. "He's trying so hard to save me. I know he's scared, but he never shows it. He just keeps searching and hoping and telling me everything will be okay." Kaida looked at the wallet in her hands, at the desperate notes, at the photos capturing a father watching his daughter fade. "How long do you have?" "Dr. Ramesh says maybe 6 weeks now, maybe less." Mira said it matter-of-factly, the way another child might discuss weather. "The Lysara route could cure me, but it's really rare and really far away. Dad saved for 2 years to afford this trip. This was our last chance. And without these notes, he does not know where to find it. The coordinates are really specific. The root only grows in certain volcanic zones at certain times. Without exact locations." Mira did not finish. She did not need to. Kaida stood. Her mind raced through calculations, through protocols, through consequences. I will find him. What? Your father. I will find him and give him these notes. I will make sure he comes back. Mira stared at her. But you don't even know us. Why would you do that? Kaida looked at the small human child, dying in a medical bed, still finding strength to smile. Because I can. And because someone should. She turned to leave, but Mira's voice stopped her. Wait, take this. The girl reached to her bedside table and picked up a small wooden carving of a dragon. Crude, clearly made by child's hands, but careful. For luck. Dragons are supposed to be lucky. Kaida took the carving. It felt warm in her palm. I will bring your father back. I promise. As she left the medical ward, wallet secured in her jacket, wooden dragon in her pocket, Kaida accessed her comm. She had 48 hours of emergency leave saved. She had never used emergency leave. Security officers did not take unnecessary time off. Until now. She sent the request to Ryu. Then she contacted her friend Sienna, who owned a fast courier ship. Then she began plotting jump coordinates to the outer rim. A dragon hybrid who lived by protocol and logic was about to break every rule she knew, for a human child she just met, for a father she had never seen. Because sometimes, rarely, the right thing to do was also the illogical thing, and because that small wooden dragon, carved with hope by dying hands, deserved to be proven right. Sienna's courier ship, a sleek vessel named Quicksilver, hummed with barely contained power as Kaida secured herself in the co-pilot's seat. Her friend, a wolf hybrid with silver fur and sharp green eyes, finished the pre-flight sequence with practiced ease. You know Ryu is going to be furious, Sienna said, pulling up navigation charts. You've never even taken a sick day, and now you're chasing after some human you've never met. He dropped his wallet. Kaida checked the coordinates she had copied from David Foster's notes. His daughter is dying. He needs this information. And you couldn't just send him a message because he left in a hurry. His communication system might be damaged or disabled to avoid tracking. Many Outer Rim traders go dark to avoid pirates. Kaida pulled up David's flight plan, what little existed. He filed minimal information. Just a vector toward the Outer Rim. Could be anywhere in a dozen sectors. Sienna whistled low. That's a lot of space to search. What makes you think we can find him? Trade routes. He's looking for Lysera route on Dravon. There are only 3 viable approach vectors from Harmony Point. We check each one, talk to station masters, dock workers, fuel sellers. Someone will have seen him. That's a lot of maybes, Kaida. I know. They launched from Harmony Point without ceremony. The station fell away behind them. A glittering wheel of life and commerce spinning in the void. Kaida watched it shrink, thinking about the small girl in the medical bed. 6 weeks, maybe less. Every hour mattered. The first jump point took them to Meridian Outpost, a fuel depot serving Outer Rim traffic. Kaida questioned the dockmaster, a grizzled Centaurian with 4 arms and a good memory. Yes, he had seen a human matching David Foster's description. 3 days ago. Purchased minimal fuel, seemed in a hurry. Asked about routes to volcanic worlds. Seemed worried, the dockmaster added. Kept checking his pockets like he lost something. Paid with emergency credit chips. Man was desperate about something. Second jump took them deeper into less regulated space. The stations here were smaller, rougher. Kaida wore her security uniform, badge visible. It gave her authority even outside her jurisdiction. Sienna stayed with the ship while Kaida worked through cantinas and trading posts, showing David's ID photo, asking questions. A Talarian bartender remembered him. Human guy, yeah. Was here 2 days ago. Looked exhausted. Asked if anyone knew about Lysara route sources. Got into an argument with some Krillian traders who tried to sell him fake location data. Did he say where he was going next? Talked about Dravon, but he seemed confused about the coordinates. Kept saying he needed to remember something important. Drank water, no alcohol. Left after an hour. Kaida thanked him and moved on. Each piece of information was a breadcrumb, a trail through the vastness of space. David was ahead of her, searching blind, probably second-guessing every decision without his notes. She had to move faster. Third jump brought them to the edge of civilized space. Here, stations were few and ships passed through like ghosts. Kaida found a small trading post called Last Chance, appropriate name for a place that existed at the border of known routes. The postmaster was human, surprisingly. an old woman named Ruth who ran the facility with 2 assistants and a lot of stubbornness. She looked at David's photo and nodded immediately. David Foster. Yes, he was here yesterday, nice man, clearly out of his depth. Ruth poured Kaida a cup of tea without asking. He was asking about Dravon, about volcanic regions. Said he needed to find specific coordinates, but couldn't remember them exactly. Seemed pretty upset about it. Did he say anything else? He mentioned his daughter. Said her name was Mira. Said she was the smartest, bravest kid in the universe. Ruth's expression softened. He showed me a photo. Pretty little thing. I asked if she was waiting for him back home. He said she was waiting, but not for long. Didn't explain more than that, but I could see it in his eyes. Parents' fear. I know that look. Kaida leaned forward. Which way did he go? Took the northern vector toward the Forbidden Nebula. I warned him that area has spatial anomalies, that it's dangerous for small ships. He said he didn't have a choice. Ruth studied Kaida with sharp eyes. You're looking for him. Why? He dropped his wallet. It has what he needs. And you're chasing across half the galaxy to return it? His daughter asked me to bring him home. Ruth smiled. You're a good person. Your scales don't hide that. She pulled up a star chart. The nebula is 3 hours from here at standard speed. But if you take the southern approach vector, you can cut that to 90 minutes. It's technically not charted, but I've mapped it over 30 years. Safe enough if you know what you're doing. Thank you. Bring them both home safe, Ruth said. The galaxy needs more people willing to chase across it for strangers. Kaida and Sienna made the jump to the approach vector Ruth provided. Space here felt different, darker. Fewer ships, fewer stations, fewer signs of civilization. The Forbidden Nebula loomed ahead, a vast cloud of purple and blue gases that played havoc with sensors. I really don't like this, Sienna muttered, adjusting shields. Nebulas are bad enough without adding forbidden to the name. We're close. I can feel it. You can feel it. Kaida, since when do you trust feelings over data? Since a small girl handed her a wooden carving and smiled like hope still existed. But Kaida did not say that aloud. Instead, she monitored communications frequencies, searching for any signal that might be David's ship. They were an hour into the nebula when Sienna's sensors picked up debris. Small pieces at first, then larger chunks, parts of a ship torn and scattered. Kaida's heart sank until she analyzed the metal composition. Not David's ship. Something else. Something bigger. Pirate wreckage, Sienna said, reading the same data. Looks like someone put up a fight. They followed the debris trail and found more evidence of battle. Scorch marks on asteroids, weapon signatures, signs of a chase, and then finally a signal. Weak, intermittent, but there. A distress beacon. That's him, Kaida said immediately. You can't know that. It's him. Go faster. Sienna pushed the engines, navigating through the nebula's interference. The signal grew stronger. And then they saw it. David Foster's small cargo ship adrift in space. Main engines dark. Emergency lights flickering. The hull showed damage from weapons fire. Amateur but effective. Pirates had found him. Life support is minimal, Sienna reported, scanning. One life sign, human, unconscious. Oxygen levels critical. He's got maybe an hour. Get us alongside. I'm going in. Kaida, the airlocks don't match. You'll have to cut through. Then I'll cut through. Sienna maneuvered Quicksilver next to the damaged vessel. Kaida suited up in emergency gear, grabbed cutting tools and entered the airlock. Void surrounded her as she crossed the gap between ships. Her dragon heritage gave her strength and steady hands. She needed both. The cutting laser burned through David's airlock in 3 minutes. Atmosphere hissed out, precious oxygen escaping into space. Kaida worked faster, opening the seal, pulling herself inside. The ship's interior was chaos. Equipment scattered everywhere. Emergency lights casting red shadows. And there, floating in zero gravity, unconscious, was David Foster. He looked like his photo, but worse. Exhausted. Injured. His breathing was shallow. Kaida checked his vitals. Alive, but barely. She activated her suit's emergency beacon, signaling Sienna. I've got him. Prepare medical bay. She gathered David carefully, supporting his weight, and began moving him toward the airlock. As she did, her eyes caught something floating nearby. A datapad, cracked screen still glowing faintly. She grabbed it. On the screen was a crude star chart, hand-drawn, coordinates marked and crossed out repeatedly. David had been trying to recreate his lost notes from memory. Kaida secured David and pulled them both across to Quicksilver. Sienna met them in the airlock, helping carry the unconscious human to the small medical bay. They laid him on the examination table and Sienna began emergency treatment. Oxygen deprivation, exhaustion, mild malnutrition, and several bruised ribs, Sienna diagnosed. He'll live, but he pushed himself hard. Too hard. Kaida stood beside the table looking at David's face. Even unconscious, he looked worried. She pulled out his wallet and placed it on his chest like a talisman, like proof that hope still existed. Mira, David mumbled, still unconscious. Have to find it. Mira needs me. He's delirious, Sienna said. Oxygen deprivation does that. Kaida placed her hand on David's shoulder. You found me. Now we find it together. It took 4 hours for David to regain consciousness. When his eyes finally opened, confusion filled them. He stared at the ceiling, then at Sienna, then at Kaida. His gaze focused on her amber eyes, her scales, her dragon features. Am I dead? He asked, voice hoarse. No, Kaida replied. You're safe. Safe? He tried to sit up, panic flooding his features. No, I can't be safe. I have to get to Dravon. I have to find the coordinates. Mira needs me. My daughter needs me, and I lost my notes, and I can't remember, and time is running out, and... Kaida held up the wallet. David stopped mid-sentence. His eyes went wide. He reached for it with shaking hands, opening it, seeing his notes intact. How? Where? You dropped it at Harmony Point 3 days ago. I found it during patrol. 3 days. David's face crumpled. I've been searching blind for 3 days. I got attacked by pirates. I got lost in the nebula. I wasted time Mira doesn't have. She's dying and I wasted 3 days. You didn't waste them, Kaida said firmly. You survived them, and now you have your coordinates back. But 3 days. She only had 8 weeks. Now she has less and I'm not even close to Dravon and... Stop. Kaida's voice carried command, honed from security training. I know where Dravon is. I know the fastest routes. I know exactly where the Lysara route grows because your notes tell me. We can reach it in time. David stared at her. We? I'm not letting you do this alone. You nearly died out here. The Forbidden Nebula almost killed you. Dravon is a death world, volcanic and hostile. You need help. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Kaida pulled the small wooden dragon from her pocket. Your daughter gave me this. She said it was for luck. She asked me to bring you home. She met his eyes. I promised her I would. David looked at the carving at his daughter's handiwork and tears spilled down his face. Not quiet tears, but huge, shaking sobs. All the fear and exhaustion and desperation of 3 days alone in space came pouring out. Kaida stood silent, letting him release it. Finally, he wiped his face. I can't pay you. I spent everything on this ship, on fuel, on supplies. I don't want payment. Then why? Kaida thought about Mira's smile. About Ruth's words at last chance. About dragon wisdom that measured life in centuries but had never taught her what 8 weeks of a child's life was worth. Because your daughter is dying and you're trying to save her. Because that matters more than protocol or rules or anything I was taught about not getting involved. Because I have the power to help and that means I have the responsibility to try. David Foster looked at this dragon hybrid security officer who had chased him across space, who had cut through his ship to save his life, who held his daughter's wooden carving like it was precious. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Save your thanks for when we get back with the Lysara route. Kaida turned to Sienna. How long to Dravon? 18 hours if we push the engines. But that planet is no joke, Kaida. Volcanic activity, toxic atmosphere, extreme gravity. Getting the route means landing, and landing there is practically suicide. Then it's good I'm practically suicidal. Kaida looked at David. Rest. Eat. Recover your strength. We're going to need you sharp when we get there. What if we're too late? David asked quietly. What if even now she's not? She's waiting for you. She told me you'd come back because you always keep your promises. Kaida handed him the wallet. Now let's make sure she's right. As David clutched his notes, his lifeline, his hope, Quicksilver turned toward Dravon. Behind them, the Forbidden Nebula swirled with ancient gases. Ahead, a volcanic death world waited, and on Harmony Point, a small girl counted days with medicine and prayers. The race was not over. It was just beginning. Dravon filled the view screen like a wound in space. The planet's surface glowed red and orange, volcanic activity visible even from orbit. Ash clouds swirled through a toxic atmosphere that would kill most species in minutes. David stood beside Kaida. studying the readings with growing dread. The coordinates from my notes put the Lysera route in the Ashfall Valley region, he said, pointing to a location on the scan. It's between two active volcano ranges. The route only grows in the cooling vents during brief periods when the volcanic activity subsides. How brief? Sienna asked. 4 to 6 hours. Then the eruptions start again. David pulled up more data. I researched this for months. The Lysera route needs the extreme heat to germinate, but it can't survive direct lava flow. It exists in this tiny window between eruptions, growing fast, then dying when the next cycle begins. Kaida studied the planet's rotation. When is the next quiet period? According to geological data, in about 3 hours. But that data is old. Dravon's cycles are unpredictable. So we might have 6 hours or we might have 20 minutes. Exactly. Sienna shook her head. This is insane. Even with environmental suits, that gravity will crush a human. The heat will overwhelm most shields. And if the eruptions start while you're down there... I know the risks, David interrupted. I've known them since I started researching. I'm going down there whether it's safe or not. You won't survive 5 minutes alone, Kaida said flatly. The gravity alone will break your bones. You need me. I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm telling you how this works. Kaida activated the ship's environmental suit storage. My dragon physiology can handle higher gravity and heat better than yours. I'll do the physical work. You guide me to the exact location and identify the route. We work together. David looked at her for a long moment. Your people live for centuries. Why risk that for a human child you barely know? Because she's a child. Because she's dying. Because her father loves her enough to come to this hell, and that means something. Kaida pulled out an environmental suit rated for extreme conditions. Now suit up. We have 3 hours to prepare. They spent the time checking equipment, calibrating sensors, and reviewing everything David knew about Lysera root. The plant was distinctive. Bioluminescent blue with crystalline structures in its root system. It grew in clusters, usually near volcanic vents where the heat was most intense. They would need to harvest at least 3 full plants to have enough for Mira's treatment. There's something else, David said quietly as they prepared to descend. The Lysera root is usually guarded. Kaida paused. Guarded by what? Crystalline creatures. They're silicon-based life forms that evolved in the volcanic environment. They're territorial and aggressive. Researchers call them shard wraiths. They see anything near the Lysera root as a threat. Why didn't you mention this before? Because you'd already risked so much. I thought maybe I could handle them alone, or maybe we'd get lucky and they wouldn't be there. David's voice was strained. I'm sorry. I should have told you. Kaida sealed her suit's helmet. How dangerous are they? Very. They're fast, resistant to most weapons, and they attack in groups. Previous expeditions lost people to them. Then we'll have to be smarter than previous expeditions. Kaida grabbed a plasma cutter and a shield generator. Anything else you haven't told me? Just that I'm terrified and grateful in equal measure. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Gratitude keeps you motivated. Let's go get that route. They took a small landing shuttle down through Dravon's atmosphere. The descent was violent, the craft shaking as it punched through ash clouds and toxic gases. Warning alarms screamed about heat levels, atmospheric pressure, and radiation. Sienna's voice crackled over the comm from Quicksilver in orbit. You're both completely insane. Just want that on record. Noted, Kaida replied, fighting the controls as wind shear tried to flip them sideways. They landed hard on volcanic rock in a valley between 2 massive mountains that leaked smoke and fire. The moment they stepped out of the shuttle, Kaida felt the gravity trying to crush her into the ground. It was 3 times what she was used to. Her dragon strength kept her upright, but every movement required effort. David collapsed immediately. Even through his suit's gravity compensators, he couldn't stand. Kaida caught him, supporting his weight. I've got you, she said. Don't try to walk. I'll carry what we need. You navigate. She lifted him carefully, mindful of the gravity's pressure on both their bodies. Her muscles strained, scales rippling with effort, but she moved forward. David directed her toward a ravine that glowed with residual heat. The vents should be at the bottom, 30 meters down. The climb down was brutal. Kaida's feet dug into volcanic rock, searching for purchase. The heat was intense even through her suit. Her internal cooling system worked overtime. She could feel her dragon heritage activating, her body adapting to the extreme environment in ways full humans never could. It gave her an advantage, but not much of one. They reached the bottom of the ravine and found the vents. Heat shimmered the air even through their helmet displays. And there, Growing in clusters around the hottest vents were the Lysera roots, beautiful bioluminescent blue, crystalline structures catching the red light from above. Hope growing in hell. There, David breathed. That's it. We found it. Kada approached carefully, scanning for threats. The valley seemed empty except for rocks and heat. Maybe they'd gotten lucky. Maybe the shard wraiths were elsewhere. She knelt beside the nearest cluster, setting David down gently, and reached for the first plant. The ground erupted. Creatures burst from beneath volcanic rock. They looked like mobile crystals, geometric and sharp, moving with impossible speed despite their apparent weight. 6 of them, then 8, then more. They surrounded Kaida and David, making sounds like breaking glass. Shard wraiths, David said unnecessarily. The creatures circled, assessing. Kaida activated her shield generator, creating a barrier around both of them. The wraiths tested it immediately, striking with crystalline limbs that sparked against the energy field. The shield held, but Kaida could see its power draining faster than expected. The extreme environment stressed every system. We need those roots, she said. How long can you hold them off? What? I thought you'd hold them off while I harvested. I can't do both. The gravity is too much. I can fight or I can dig, not both. David looked at the plasma cutter in his hands, then at the creatures that could tear through metal. He was a trader, not a soldier. He'd never fought anything more dangerous than cargo disputes. But he thought of Mira, waiting in a medical bed, counting hours. Give me the shield controls, he said. I'll manage the barrier. You get the roots. Kaida handed over the shield generator remote and grabbed the extraction tools. She moved to the nearest Lysera root cluster and began digging. The gravity fought her every movement. The heat made her suit's warnings scream, and the shard wraiths attacked relentlessly, testing the shield, searching for weaknesses. David managed the barrier, adjusting frequencies, diverting power. He'd worked with ship shields for years. The principles were the same, just smaller scale and much more desperate. Every time a wraith struck, the shield flickered. Every flicker meant less time, less power, less chance. First plant secured, Kaida reported, carefully extracting the root with its crystalline structure intact. 2 more needed. Shield at 60%. Those hits are draining it fast. Kaida moved to the second cluster. Her muscles screamed in protest. Moving in this gravity was like swimming through concrete. She dug faster, ignoring her body's complaints. The second root came free. She sealed it in a protective container. 1 more. Shield at 40%. Kaida, they're getting smarter. They're coordinating attacks. She saw it too. The wraiths were testing different points simultaneously, forcing David to split the shield's power. They were learning, adapting. She reached the third cluster and began digging. A wraith strike broke through a weak point in the shield. David diverted power, but not before the creature's crystalline limb slashed across Kaida's suit. The material held barely. Alarms warned of structural damage. Kaida, keep the shield up. I'm almost done. She pulled the third root free just as the ground began to shake. Low rumble became a roar. The volcanic vents suddenly glowed brighter. Heat levels spiked across all sensors. Eruption starting, David said, voice tight. We need to leave, now. Kaida grabbed the containers and ran toward David, fighting gravity and exhaustion. The wraiths, sensing the volcanic activity, scattered and retreated into their underground homes. They knew what was coming. She reached David, lifted him in the containers, and sprinted for the ravine wall. Behind them, lava began to bubble up from the vents. The Lysera roots they hadn't harvested withered and died in seconds, consumed by heat. They'd gotten there just in time. Climbing the ravine wall while carrying David and the roots while gravity tried to crush them, while volcanic eruption built behind them, was the hardest thing Kaida had ever done. Her dragon strength was depleted. Her muscles tore with each movement. Her scales cracked from strain. But she climbed. She reached the top as lava spilled into the ravine below. She ran for the shuttle, her entire body on fire with pain. David triggered the shuttle's remote start. The engines powered up. They were going to make it. Then Kaida's leg gave out. She collapsed, still clutching David and the containers. Her body had hit its limit. Dragon or not, she couldn't stand. The gravity was too much, the exhaustion too complete. Leave me, she said. Take the roots. Save your daughter. Absolutely not. David, who could barely move in this gravity, who was human and fragile, activated his suit's emergency power. It would drain in minutes, but for those minutes it gave him strength. He crawled to Kaida, hooked his arms under hers, and pulled. Not far, not fast, but forward, toward the shuttle. She tried to help, but her body wouldn't respond. David pulled harder, his suit screaming warnings, his body breaking under the strain. "My daughter," he grunted, pulling, "made me promise to bring you home too." They reached the shuttle. David somehow got them both inside, somehow got the door closed, somehow triggered launch as lava reached the landing site. The shuttle lifted on automatic systems, climbing through toxic atmosphere, escaping the death world by seconds. In orbit, Sienna caught them with Quicksilver's tractor beam, pulling them into the cargo bay. She found them both collapsed in the shuttle, barely conscious, clutches of bioluminescent blue roots secure in their containers. "You're both idiots," she said, activating medical systems. "Brave, successful idiots." David managed a weak laugh. "Did we get enough?" Kaida forced her eyes open. "3 plants. Full roots. We got it." "Then let's go home." David looked at her, this dragon hybrid who had carried him through hell. "Let's go save my daughter." Sienna set course for Harmony Point. Maximum speed, gravity drives pushed to the limit. The Lysara route sat secure in cryo-storage, preserved and viable. David and Kaida recovered in medical beds, their bodies battered but healing. "Why did you come back for me?" Kaida asked hours later when they both could speak without pain. David looked at her. "You asked me why I'd risk everything for Mira. The answer is simple. Because she's worth it. Because love means you don't calculate risk versus reward. You just act." He smiled weakly. "You came across space to save someone you never met. You carried me through a death world. You promised a little girl you'd bring her father home. How could I do any less for you?" Kaida touched the wooden dragon carving she'd kept with her through everything. "Humans are not weak. I was taught wrong. Dragons aren't cold. You were taught wrong too." They rested then, both healing, while Quicksilver raced toward Harmony Point, toward a medical ward where a small girl counted hours and hoped. They had the Lysara route. They had beaten death worlds and crystalline creatures and their own physical limits. Now they just had to get there in time. Quicksilver tore through space faster than it was designed to travel. Sienna had disabled safety limiters and pushed the gravity drive beyond manufacturer recommendations. The ship groaned in protest, but it flew. In the medical bay, David paced despite his injuries, checking time calculations obsessively. 4 days since I left Harmony Point," he muttered. "Mira had 8 weeks. That leaves just over 7 now. We need 18 hours to get back, then processing time for the route, then treatment administration. We'll make it. We have to make it." Kaida watched him from her recovery bed. Her scales were still healing, showing cracks from the strain of Draven's gravity. Dragon physiology was remarkable, but even it had limits. "You should rest. Pacing doesn't make us move faster. I can't rest. Every time I close my eyes, I see her in that hospital bed getting weaker, wondering where I am." David ran his hands through his hair. "What if she thinks I abandoned her? What if she's scared? She knows you're coming. She told me you always keep your promises. I dropped my wallet, Kaida. I lost the one thing I needed most and wasted 3 days because of it." "What kind of father does that?" "The kind who gets so focused on saving his daughter that he forgets to check his pockets." Kaida sat up carefully, her body protesting. "The kind who survived pirates and a nebula and kept searching even when lost. The kind worth chasing across the galaxy." David stopped pacing. "Why did you really do this?" "There has to be a reason beyond returning lost property." Kaida was quiet for a moment, thinking about her answer. "My mother died when I was young. Not as young as Mira is now, but young for a dragon hybrid. My father fell apart. He stopped eating, stopped speaking. He just sat and stared at nothing. I thought he was weak for letting grief consume him. But now I understand he wasn't weak. He was drowning in the weight of losing someone irreplaceable. Humans taught dragons the word love, but I don't think we truly understood it until we started having families with you." She looked at David. "I saw Mira's smile in those photos. I saw your notes getting more desperate. I realized that love is not a weakness. It's the strongest force in the universe." Before David could respond, alarms blared. Sienna's voice came over the comm, strained. "We have a problem. Engine core is overheating. I pushed too hard. We need to drop out of jump space and let the system cool or risk a catastrophic failure." "How long?" David demanded. "Minimum 2 hours, maybe 3. We don't have 3 hours. We don't have a choice. If the core explodes, we don't make it at all." David slammed his fist against the wall. "No, we've come too far. There has to be another way." Kaida moved to the engine diagnostics panel, studying the readings. Her security training included basic engineering, but this was beyond her expertise. The core temperature was critical. Another 10 minutes at this speed would cause a meltdown. Can we reroute power? She asked. Divert from non-essential systems? Already did that, Sienna replied. Life support is at minimum. Weapons offline. Even artificial gravity is reduced. There's nothing left to divert. Kaida looked at the cryo-storage unit containing the Lycera roots. Keeping them preserved required significant power. What if we reduce cryo-storage power? The roots will degrade. You risked your lives for those plants. If they're damaged, how long can they survive at reduced power? Silence on the comm. Then Sienna's reluctant answer. Maybe 8 hours before cellular breakdown begins. But that's cutting it incredibly close. David looked at Kaida. If we reduce power and the roots degrade, Mira dies. If we don't and the engine explodes, we all die and Mira dies anyway. Then we reduce power and fly faster once the engine cools. Kaida made the decision. Sienna, divert cryo-storage power to engines. Give us everything you can. This is insane. We've been insane since this started. Don't stop now, power diverted. The engine core temperature stabilized just below critical. Quicksilver accelerated, pushing through space at speeds that made the stars blur. In cryostorage, the Lycera roots sat at reduced preservation, their bioluminescent glow dimming slightly. 8 hours became 7, became 6. They crossed sectors at impossible speed. David monitored the roots obsessively, watching for any signs of degradation. Kaida helped Sienna manage engine temperature, constantly adjusting, constantly balancing on the edge of disaster. 5 hours out, Sienna reported. Engine holding. Roots showing early signs of cellular stress but still viable. Mira's condition. David asked the question he'd been afraid to voice. Kaida opened a comm channel to Harmony Point Medical Ward. This is Security Officer Kaida requesting status update on patient Mira Foster, a tired voice responded. Mira Foster is stable but declining. She's asking about her father. We've told her he's on his way, but she's getting weaker. Dr. Ramesh says we have maybe 24 hours before her system begins total shutdown. David's face went pale. Tell her I'm coming. Tell her I found it. Tell her to hold on just a little longer. I'll relay the message. The comm closed. David sat heavily, his head in his hands. Kaida wanted to offer comfort but didn't know how. Her people weren't raised to soothe. They were raised to endure. But David didn't need endurance. He needed hope. When I was young, Kaida began, my father told me a story about human explorers who tried to climb the highest mountain on my homeworld. They failed 3 times. Each time the mountain defeated them. Other species mocked them, said humans were too weak, too fragile. But they came back a 4th time. Did they make it? Yes, because they refused to accept defeat. Because every failure taught them something new. Because they were too stubborn to give up. She met his eyes. Mira has your stubbornness. She'll hold on. What if she doesn't? Then we make sure she never has to find out. We fly faster. 3 hours from Harmony Point, disaster struck. Not from engines or roots, but from outside. A ship appeared on sensors moving to intercept. Large armed and broadcasting on pirate frequencies. They're demanding we stop and prepare for boarding, Sienna said. Standard robbery protocol. They want cargo. We can't stop, David said. If we don't, they'll fire on us. Kaida studied the pirate ship's specifications. It was bigger, better armed, but older. Quicksilver was fast, but couldn't outrun weapons fire. Fighting was impossible. They had no weapons power, but surrender meant delay, and delay meant Mira died. Can we jump? Kaida asked. Jump drives need 10 minutes to charge. They'll destroy us in 2. Kaida looked at the tactical display, her mind racing through options. The pirate ship was positioning itself between Quicksilver and the jump point. Standard pirate tactics. Cut off escape routes. They'd done this hundreds of times. Sienna, can you still do that gravity well maneuver you showed me at the academy? The one that nearly got us expelled? That's insane even for today. Can you do it? Probably. Maybe it'll be close. Do it. Sienna grinned, wolf instincts rising to the challenge. Strap in. This is going to be rough. Quicksilver dove toward a nearby planet's gravity well, accelerating straight down. The pirate ship followed, confident in their superior firepower. They didn't understand what Sienna was planning until too late. At the last possible second, Sienna fired maneuvering thrusters and used the planet's gravity to slingshot Quicksilver at a 90-degree angle. The sudden turn created forces that made the ship scream. Kaida felt her bones creak. David blacked out momentarily, but they shot past the pirate ship before it could adjust trajectory. The pirates, caught in their own intercept course, couldn't turn fast enough. They had to fight the gravity well they'd followed Quicksilver into. By the time they recovered, Sienna had Quicksilver halfway to the jump point. "Jump in 3 minutes," she announced. "Everyone still alive back there?" "Alive," Kaida confirmed, checking on David. He was conscious again, breathing hard, but functional. "I think I left my stomach near that planet," he managed. They jumped before the pirates could catch up. One more jump, then Harmony Point. One more race against time. The Lysara routes were degrading faster now, their glow noticeably dimmer. They had maybe 2 hours before the routes became useless. "Final approach to Harmony Point," Sienna said. 1 hour out. Kaida opened a priority channel to Station Medical. "This is Security Officer Kaida to Dr. Ramesh. I'm incoming with David Foster and Lysara route samples. Have your team ready for immediate processing and treatment. ETA 60 minutes. Dr. Ramesh's voice was professional but urgent. "Understood. Mira's condition has deteriorated. We need those routes as fast as possible." "How long does she have?" A pause. "Hours, maybe less. Her body is shutting down." David heard it. He stood, swaying but determined. "Tell them I'm coming. Tell Mira her daddy found it. Tell her I'm bringing it home." The final hour was the longest of Kaida's life. Every minute felt like years. She helped Sienna optimize their approach vector. She prepared the cryo-storage unit for quick transport. She did everything possible to save seconds because seconds mattered. Harmony Point appeared on sensors. The station had never looked so beautiful, a wheel of light in the darkness. Home. They were almost home. Sienna brought Quicksilver into the station at unsafe speeds, killing velocity only at the last moment. Docking clamps caught them hard enough to shake teeth. The moment they were secured, Kaida grabbed the cryo-storage unit and ran. David followed, his body pushed beyond exhaustion but moving on pure determination. They ran through corridors, security clearance opening every door. Other officers saw Kaida and made way. She was covered in healing wounds, her uniform torn. Running like death itself chased her. In her arms, she carried a container of fading blue light. Medical ward. Section 7, Room 247. Dr. Ramesh and his team waited outside with processing equipment. Kaida handed over the cryo unit. The doctor's team immediately began extracting the roots, working with practiced speed. "The degradation is significant," one doctor said. "But there's enough viable material. This will work." David tried to enter Mira's room, but Dr. Ramesh stopped him. "We need 30 minutes to process the root and prepare the treatment. You can't see her yet. She needs to know I'm here. She's unconscious. We sedated her an hour ago. Her pain levels were too high." Dr. Ramesh's expression was kind but firm. "Let us work. When she wakes up, you'll be here." David collapsed against the wall, finally letting exhaustion claim him. Kaida sat beside him, her own body ready to shut down. They'd flown across the galaxy, fought crystalline creatures on a volcanic death world, outrun pirates and raced physics itself. Now they could do nothing but wait. Ryu appeared, her superior officer and mentor. He looked at Kaida's state, at the obvious signs of combat and extreme stress. "You're supposed to be on emergency leave." "I am on emergency leave. This looks more like a war." It was. Kaida met his eyes. "And we won." Ryu studied her, then nodded slowly. "When you can walk without falling over, file a report. Something tells me it'll be interesting reading." He turned to leave, then paused. "You did good, Kaida. Your mother would be proud." Time crawled. Medical staff moved in and out of Mira's room. Equipment beeped. Voices murmured technical terms. David sat frozen, staring at the closed door, willing it to open with good news. Finally, after an eternity compressed into 45 minutes, Dr. Ramesh emerged. His expression was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. David stood swaying. "We've administered the treatment," the doctor said. "The Lysara route was viable despite the degradation. Mira's body is responding. Her cellular regeneration has begun. Will she live?" David's voice cracked. Dr. Ramesh smiled. "She'll live. Full recovery will take weeks, but yes, your daughter will live." David's legs gave out. Kaida caught him, supporting his weight as tears streamed down his face. Not tears of grief this time, but of relief so profound it hurt. He'd done it. Against every obstacle, across impossible distances, through death worlds and pirates and his own failures. He'd done it. Can I see her? She's sleeping naturally now. No more sedation needed. She'll wake up in a few hours. You can sit with her. They entered room 247 together. Mira lay in the bed looking small and fragile, but her breathing was steady. Color was already returning to her face. Medical equipment showed vital signs strengthening by the minute. Beside her bed, Kaida saw drawings Mira had made. Spaceships, dragons, and a new one, showing a human and a dragon hybrid standing together under stars. David took his daughter's hand, careful not to wake her. I'm here, sweetheart. Daddy's here. I found it. You're going to be okay. Kaida placed the wooden dragon carving on Mira's bedside table, its small form a reminder of hope kept alive. She turned to leave, to let the family have privacy, but David's voice stopped her. Stay. Please, you're part of this too. So Kaida stayed, sitting in a chair in the corner, watching a father hold his daughter's hand. Watching life return to a child who had been dying. Watching a promise kept. Her eyes grew heavy. The exhaustion of days finally caught up with her. As she drifted toward sleep, she thought about wallets and wooden carvings and the strange paths that led strangers to become family. She'd crossed the galaxy to return lost property, but somewhere along the way she'd found something more valuable. Purpose, connection, understanding that life's meaning wasn't measured in centuries, but in moments that mattered. And this moment, watching a father and daughter reunited, watching hope transform into reality, was worth every second of the journey. 3 days after the Lysara root treatment, Mira opened her eyes to find her father asleep in the chair beside her bed. His hand still held hers even in sleep. She squeezed gently and he woke instantly, looking at her with such overwhelming relief that she started crying. Hey, sweetheart, he said, voice thick with emotion. You're awake. You came back. Her voice was weak but clear. I knew you would. I promised, didn't I? He brushed hair from her forehead. How do you feel? Tired, but not the scary kind of tired anymore. Just normal tired. She looked around the room. Where's the dragon lady? Kaida. She's in medical recovery. She got hurt pretty badly helping me find the root. David smiled. She saved both our lives, actually. Multiple times. Can I see her? When the doctors say you're strong enough to visit. She's healing fast. Dragon thing, apparently. Mira noticed the wooden carving on her bedside table. She kept it. She really kept it the whole time. She did. Said it was for luck. Looks like it worked. Over the following days, both Mira and Kaida healed. Mira's recovery was remarkable, her body responding to the Lysara root treatment better than doctors expected. The cellular degradation reversed itself, strength returning to muscles that had been failing. Dr. Ramesh called it the best response he'd seen in 20 years of treating rare diseases. Kaida's dragon physiology repaired her injuries at an accelerated rate. Cracked scales regenerated, torn muscles knitted themselves whole. What would take other species months took her days. But even dragon healing had its limits. The strain of Dravon's gravity had done deep damage. She would recover fully, but it would take time. On the 5th day, the doctors allowed Mira to visit Kaida's recovery room. David pushed his daughter in a wheelchair, though she insisted she could walk. They found Kaida sitting up in bed reading reports on her datapad. She looked up when they entered and Mira's face lit up. You're the dragon from my dreams, Mira said. I dreamed about you while I was sick. You were flying through fire carrying something blue that glowed. It was the root, wasn't it? Something like that. Kaida set aside her datapad. How are you feeling? Like I'm going to live. Mira smiled. Thank you for helping my dad. He's not good at asking for help. I noticed. Kaida glanced at David, who had the grace to look embarrassed. I brought you something. Mira held out a piece of paper, a new drawing. It showed a dragon hybrid and a human standing on a volcanic planet, holding glowing roots. Above them, stars formed words. Family is who fights for you. Kaida took the drawing carefully, something tight forming in her chest. This is beautiful. I made one for Dad, too, he cried. Mira said it matter-of-factly, as children do. He cries a lot lately. Happy crying, though. They talked for an hour, Mira's energy fading toward the end, but her spirits high. She asked questions about dragon culture, about space stations, about everything. Kaida answered each one, finding herself enjoying the child's curiosity. When Mira finally dozed off in her wheelchair, David carried her back to her room. He returned alone an hour later. She's asleep. Doctor says she's recovering faster than expected. We might be able to leave the station in a few weeks. That's good news. Kaida meant it, even though the thought of them leaving brought an unexpected sadness. David sat in the visitor chair. We need to talk about what happens next. You recover. You take Mira home. You rebuild your lives. And you? What happens to you? I return to security duty. File reports about unauthorized leave and reckless behavior. Probably face disciplinary action. Kaida shrugged. Worth it. Kaida, you risked your career, your life, everything. You can't just go back to routine patrols like nothing happened. What else would I do? David was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking. Mira and I, we don't have much. But what we do have, we want to share. Stay in touch with us. Visit when you can. Let us be part of your life because you're definitely part of ours now. Your lives are just beginning again. You don't need a dragon hybrid security officer complicating things. You're not complicating anything. You're family now. Mira said so, and she's rarely wrong about people. David leaned forward. I know dragons don't really do the whole family thing with other species. I know you're used to being alone, but maybe that could change. Before Kaida could respond, her comm beeped. Ryu's face appeared on the screen, expression serious. Officer Kaida, report to command when you're medically cleared. We need to discuss your recent activities. Understood, sir. The comm closed. David looked worried. That didn't sound good. It rarely does when command wants to talk. Kaida stood carefully, testing her healed legs. I knew there would be consequences. 2 days later, fully recovered, Kaida stood in Commander Ryu's office. The older dragon sat behind his desk, her personnel file open before him. Other security officers had told her stories about this office, about careers ended and reprimands delivered. She stood at attention, prepared for the worst. 7 days of unauthorized absence, Ryu began reading from the file. Violation of jurisdiction boundaries. Engagement in off-station activities while on emergency leave. Reckless endangerment of borrowed civilian vessel. Contact with known pirate vessels. And traveling to a Class 5 death world without proper authorization or support. Yes, sir. All accurate. By regulations, I should suspend you. Possibly terminate your position. Ryu looked up. Do you have anything to say in your defense? No, sir. I broke protocol deliberately. I knew the consequences. Why? Because a child was dying and I could help. Because following protocol meant watching someone die when I had the power to prevent it. Because some things matter more than rules. Ryu studied her in silence. Finally, he closed the file. Your incident report was thorough. Very thorough. Details about shard wraiths, volcanic environments, pirate movements, and the location of viable Lycera root sources. That information alone has been forwarded to the Science Division and Medical Research. Several research teams are requesting permission to cite your findings. Sir, you didn't just save one life, Kaida. Your report provides data that could save hundreds. Future medical expeditions will be safer, more efficient because of what you documented. Ryu stood. That doesn't excuse your protocol violations, but it does provide context. What happens now? Officially, you receive a formal reprimand. It goes in your file. 2-week suspension without pay. Ryu's expression softened slightly. Unofficially, you've shown more initiative and courage than officers with decades more experience. You've demonstrated that rules exist to serve people, not the other way around. Kaida blinked. I'm not being terminated? The opposite. When your suspension ends, you're being promoted to senior security officer. With a new assignment, sir? Ryu pulled up a holographic display showing the station's layout. We're creating a new position, family support liaison, working with medical staff to assist families dealing with critical situations, helping them navigate station resources, expedite treatments, coordinate with off-station medical facilities. Someone who understands that sometimes the best security is helping people before crisis becomes tragedy. You want me to officially do what I just got in trouble for doing? I want you to use your obvious talent for helping people, combined with your security expertise to create something better than simple patrols. Ryu smiled slightly. Turns out chasing across the galaxy for a lost wallet demonstrated skills we didn't know we needed. Don't make me regret this. Kaida left the office in a daze. Promoted. Not fired, but promoted. For breaking rules. Her entire understanding of how the universe worked had been challenged and reformed over the past 2 weeks. She went directly to medical to share the news with David and Mira. She found them in the common area, Mira walking slowly but steadily, her father hovering protectively nearby. When they saw Kaida, both smiled. "You're still alive," David said. "That's good. Promoted, actually." "What? How?" Kaida explained the new position. As she talked, she watched Mira's expression grow thoughtful. The child had been through so much, had faced death with remarkable courage, and something in her eyes suggested she was still processing everything that had happened. "Kaida," Mira said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think I'm going to be scared now?" "Of everything?" "I almost died." "I know I did. And now I'm better, but I keep thinking about how close it was." Her voice wavered. "What if I can't be brave anymore?" Kaida knelt to Mira's level. "Being brave doesn't mean never being scared. It means being scared and doing what matters anyway. Your father was terrified every moment we were on Dravon, but he went because you needed him. That's real courage. Were you scared?" "Absolutely. Especially when the Shard Wraiths attacked. My hands were shaking." "But you still protected Dad." "Because that's what needed to happen. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Mira. It's fear that's been given purpose." Mira thought about this. "My purpose was surviving so Dad didn't have to be sad." "And you did. You survived. You're here. Everything else is just learning to live again, and that takes time." David squeezed his daughter's shoulder. "We're both learning, but we're doing it together." Over the following weeks, Kaida adjusted to her new role. She helped a Centaurian family coordinate treatment for their child's rare condition. She expedited paperwork for an elderly Talarian needing specialized surgery. She worked with medical staff to create better protocols for family communication during critical situations. And she spent time with David and Mira. Meals in the station cafeteria. Walks through observation decks looking at stars. Simple moments that somehow felt more significant than all her years of routine patrols. One evening, 3 weeks after the treatment, Kaida found Mira in the medical ward's garden area. The girl sat alone looking at stars through the transparent dome, her expression distant. "Everything okay?" Kaida asked. "I was thinking about time," Mira said. "Dad told me dragons live for centuries. Hundreds of years. But humans only get decades. I might live 80 years if I'm lucky. That seems so short compared to you." "It is shorter. Doesn't that bother you? Making friends with people who'll die while you're still young?" Kaida sat beside her. "A few weeks ago I would have said yes. I would have said it was logical to avoid attachments with shorter-lived species. That it would only cause pain. What changed? I met a girl who was dying but still found strength to smile. Who gave a stranger a wooden carving and called it luck. Who taught me that time's value isn't measured in length but in depth." Kaida looked at Mira. "You have decades ahead of you now. I have centuries. But what we do with that time, how we choose to spend it, that's what matters. So you're not sad that I'll die someday?" "I'll be sad when it happens. But I'll be grateful for every moment between now and then. And I think that's what friendship means. Not avoiding pain, but choosing connection anyway." Mira was quiet, processing. Then she smiled. "I'm glad Dad dropped his wallet." "Me too." They sat together watching stars, a dragon hybrid who learned to value moments and a human child who learned to value life. Around them, the station hummed with activity, thousands of species living and working together, each with their own lifespans, their own challenges, their own stories. Later, when Mira had returned to her room, David found Kaida still in the garden. "Thank you for talking with her. She's been wrestling with big questions. She's a remarkable child. She is. And she's alive because of you." David sat beside Kaida. "We're leaving in a few days. Mira's cleared for travel. I need to get back to work, rebuild our finances. But we'll be back. Regular visits. If that's okay?" "More than okay." "Good. Because Mira's already planning her next visit. Something about wanting to learn dragon customs. And she's informed me we need to bring you gifts. Apparently it's rude to visit family empty-handed." "Family." Kaida tested the word. My people don't usually use that term for non-dragons. Maybe it's time they start. The day David and Mira left was harder than Kaida expected. She stood at the docking bay, watching them board their repaired ship. Mira hugged her tightly, pressing something into her hand, another wooden carving. This one showing a dragon with a human child riding on its back. "So you don't forget us," Mira said. "Impossible." They departed, their ship becoming just another point of light among thousands. Kaida returned to her quarters and placed both carvings on her desk, beside the worn leather wallet she'd kept. Mementos of the day her life changed direction. Her comm beeped. New assignment. A family in crisis needing help navigating medical bureaucracy. Exactly the kind of work her new position was designed for. She smiled and responded immediately. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless lives burning bright and brief. For centuries, Kaida had observed from a distance, protected by longevity and emotional distance. But a dropped wallet had changed everything. Had shown her that distance was just another word for loneliness. Now she would spend her long life helping others through their short ones. And somehow that felt exactly right. She looked at Mira's carving one more time. A dragon carrying a human child. Not a burden, but a partnership. Not weakness, but shared strength. The best journeys, she realized, weren't measured in light years, but in connections made along the way. And this journey was just beginning. 18 months passed like water through fingers. Kaida's new position as family support liaison had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as helping one family at a time had expanded into a full department. She now supervised a team of 5 officers, each dedicated to supporting families facing medical crises on Harmony Point. The changes were visible throughout the station. Response times improved, families received better support, medical staff had more resources to focus on treatment rather than bureaucracy. And Kaida's report on Dravon had led to 3 successful medical expeditions, bringing back Lysera root samples that saved dozens of lives. But success came with its own weight. Kaida worked long hours, took on more cases than reasonable, pushed herself to help everyone. Her team worried. Ryu warned her about burnout. Sienna, who visited regularly, told her bluntly that she was trying to save the universe one family at a time. "You can't help everyone," Sienna said over lunch in the station cafeteria. "Some cases don't have happy endings." "I know." Kaida picked at her food without eating. "But I have to try." "Why?" "Because of Mira?" "Because now I know what's possible. I know that sometimes impossible situations have solutions if someone just cares enough to find them." Kaida looked at her friend. "How do I stop trying when I know I could make a difference?" "By accepting you're not invincible. Dragon or not, you have limits." Kaida knew Sienna was right. But knowing and accepting were different things. She'd found purpose in this work, found meaning in helping others avoid the desperation David had felt. Stopping felt like betrayal. Her comm beeped. Message from David. She smiled despite her exhaustion. They'd stayed in touch, regular video calls every few weeks. Mira sent drawings and updates about school. David shared stories about his trading routes. They'd become constants in her life, anchors of friendship across the distance. She opened the message expecting the usual cheerful update. Instead, David's face on the screen looked worried. "Kaida, we need to talk." "Can you call when you have time?" "It's about Mira. Nothing life-threatening, but important." Her heart skipped. She immediately opened a video channel. David answered within seconds, his expression confirming her worry. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Mira's fine. Physically, she's completely healthy. Dr. Ramesh's follow-up last month showed no signs of the disease returning." David ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Kaida recognized as stress. "But she's struggling with something else." "Tell me." "She's having nightmares. About dying. About the hospital. About that time when she was sick. During the day she's fine, happy even. But at night the fear comes back. She wakes up crying, convinced she's dying again." David's voice cracked. "I saved her body, but her mind is still fighting the trauma." Kaida felt the familiar surge of wanting to fix things, to find the solution. "Have you talked to a counselor?" 3 different ones. "They've helped some, but Mira keeps asking for you. She says you understand what it's like to face scary things and keep going. She wants to know how you do it." "Me? I'm just a security officer who got lucky. You're the person who carried my daughter's hope across the galaxy and brought it back intact. You're the dragon who promised to bring me home and kept that promise against every odd." David leaned closer to the screen. "Kaida, could you come visit?" "I know it's a lot to ask. You have your new position, responsibilities, but I think seeing you might help Mira more than any counselor." Kaida didn't hesitate. Send me your coordinates. I'll arrange leave. 2 days later, she stood outside a small home on a colony world called Haven's Rest. The planet was peaceful, comfortable, designed for families seeking quiet lives away from the chaos of major trade routes. David had chosen well. This was a place for healing, for building normal lives after trauma. The door opened before she could knock. Mira stood there, taller than Kaida remembered, stronger, healthier, but her eyes held shadows that hadn't been there before. You came, Mira said. And then she was hugging Kaida tightly. I was afraid you'd be too busy. Never too busy for family. Inside, the house was modest but warm. David had clearly worked hard to make it a home. Photos covered the walls, many featuring Mira's recovery journey. Others showed places he'd visited, people he'd met. And prominently displayed in the living room was Mira's drawing of Kaida and David on Dravon. Framed and preserved, they talked over dinner. Casual conversation about Kaida's work and David's trading routes. Mira was animated, telling stories about school and friends. But as evening approached, Kaida noticed the girl growing quieter, more anxious. Bedtime, David said gently. School tomorrow. Mira's expression shifted to fear, quickly hidden but visible to anyone watching closely. Can Kaida stay? Just for tonight? If she doesn't mind. I'm staying as long as you need me, Kaida confirmed. She sat in Mira's room as the girl prepared for bed. The room was decorated with drawings, toys, and a shelf full of books. On the nightstand sat the wooden dragon carving, worn smooth from constant handling. Mira got into bed clutching the carving. Do the nightmares happen every night? Kaida asked. Most nights. I dream I'm back in the hospital bed and Dad is gone and the machines are beeping wrong and I can feel myself dying. Mira's voice was small. I wake up and have to check that I'm really here, really alive. Sometimes it takes hours before I believe it. That sounds terrifying. The counselors say it's normal, that I went through trauma and my brain is processing it, but knowing it's normal doesn't make it less scary. Mira looked at Kaida. Do you have nightmares about Dravon? Sometimes. I dream about the gravity crushing me, about not being able to move while the lava rises, about failing to save your father. How do you make them stop? I don't, I just learned to face them. Kaida sat on the edge of the bed. Nightmares are our minds trying to process fear. Your mind is still afraid of dying because it remembers how close you came. That's not weakness. That's survival instinct. But I'm not dying now. I'm healthy. Why can't my brain understand that? Because fear doesn't follow logic. It just exists, and we have to acknowledge it. Kaida thought about her own journey, about the wooden carving in her pocket that she still carried. You know what helped me? Remembering why I faced the scary thing in the first place. I went to Dravon because your father needed help. Because you needed hope. That purpose was stronger than my fear. What's my purpose? That's for you to discover. But I can tell you what I see. I see a girl who survives something that kills most people. Who faces each day despite nightmares. Who asks hard questions and seeks real answers. That's courage, Mira. Real, genuine courage. It doesn't feel brave. It feels like I'm just barely holding on. That's exactly what bravery is. Not the absence of fear, but holding on despite it. Mira was quiet for a moment. Will you tell me about the Shard Wraith? The real story, not the cleaned-up version Dad tells? So Kaida told her. About the creatures erupting from volcanic rock. About the desperate fight while David managed the shield. About the moment she thought they wouldn't make it. When her body gave out and death seemed certain, she didn't hide the fear. Didn't pretend she'd been confident. I thought I was going to die, Kaida admitted. I thought I'd failed. But your father came back for me. He couldn't walk in that gravity, but he crawled. He pulled me to safety because he refused to give up. Dad did that?
He did. The same man who dropped his wallet and got lost in a nebula.
The same man who makes up names for ration packs. He found strength he didn't know he had because it mattered. Because you mattered. Mira's eyes were wet. I hate that he had to go through all that because of me. He doesn't see it that way. He sees it as the most important thing he's ever done. Saving you gave his life meaning. Kaida took Mira's hand. Your survival isn't a burden. It's a gift. To your father. To me. To everyone who knows you. Don't let fear steal that gift. How do I stop being afraid? You don't. You learn to live alongside the fear. To acknowledge it exists but not let it control you. Some nights will be hard. Some dreams will be terrifying. But you wake up, You check that you're alive and you choose to live that day fully. Mira nodded slowly. Will you stay until I fall asleep? I'll stay all night if you need me to. Kaida sat in the chair beside Mira's bed, watching the girl slowly relax into sleep. It took time, Mira fighting unconsciousness, afraid of the dreams waiting. But eventually exhaustion won. Kaida stayed, as promised, watching over her through the night. The nightmares came. Mira thrashed, crying out. Kaida was there immediately, gently waking her, reminding her where she was, that she was safe. It happened 3 times before morning. Each time Mira calmed faster, reassured by Kaida's presence. Dawn light filtered through the window. Mira woke naturally, looking tired but peaceful. You really stayed, I promised. The nightmares were better. Knowing you were here, knowing I wasn't alone, it helped. David appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted himself. How was the night? Better, Mira said. Kaida told me about being scared on Dravon. It helped knowing even dragons get afraid. Over breakfast, they talked about fear and courage and healing. David shared his own struggles with anxiety, with constant worry about Mira's health returning. They were all in different ways still processing the trauma of those weeks when Mira was dying. I think we need to accept that we're all a little broken, David said. But we're broken together, and that makes it bearable. Kaida stayed for 3 days. She helped establish routines for Mira's nightmares, worked with the counselor to provide additional context, and simply spent time with the family. They cooked meals together, played games, talked about everything and nothing. On the last evening, Mira gave Kaida another carving. This one showed a dragon, a human man, and a human child all standing together under stars. No one was carrying anyone. They stood as equals, as family. So you remember you're not alone either, Mira said. You help everyone, but who helps you? You do, Kaida realized. You and your father. You remind me why the work matters. The next morning, Kaida prepared to leave. Mira hugged her tightly. No longer the dying child from a hospital bed, but a young girl learning to live with her scars. Will you come back? Mira asked. As often as I can? Good. Because we're family and families stay together, even when they're apart. Back on Harmony Point, Kaida returned to her duties with renewed perspective. She still worked hard, still helped as many families as possible. But she also took breaks, accepted help from her team, and recognized her own limits. Sienna noticed the difference immediately. What happened on Haven's Rest? Her friend asked. I remembered that helping others includes letting others help me. That strength isn't about never needing support, it's about building networks of support that catch us when we fall. That's unusually wise for you. I learned from an 8-year-old. Months passed. Then years. Kaida's work continued, touching hundreds of lives. Some cases ended well, others didn't. But she learned to celebrate victories without being destroyed by defeats. She maintained boundaries while staying compassionate. She grew not just as a security officer, but as a person. David and Mira visited regularly. Mira grew taller, stronger, her nightmares becoming less frequent. She started talking about becoming a doctor, about helping other sick children. David's trading business grew successful, allowing him to spend more time at home, more time with his daughter. 5 years after finding the wallet, Kaida stood at the same maintenance corridor where everything had started. The station had changed. She had changed. But the fundamentals remained. People still needed help. Families still faced crises. And she was still there, ready to respond. Her comm beeped. Emergency case, family and medical ward, child critically ill. She responded immediately, already moving. As she walked, she touched the wooden carvings in her pocket. 3 of them now, representing different moments in an ongoing journey. Reminders that one person's choice to help could ripple across years, across lives, across the vast space between strangers becoming family. She arrived at the medical ward and met the terrified parents. They were Talarian, their child suffering from a rare condition. The mother was crying. The father looked lost, overwhelmed by medical terminology and impossible choices. Kaida recognized that expression. She'd seen it on David's face in photos, in the desperate notes from his wallet. She knew what came next. The research, the searching, the fighting against impossible odds, and she knew with absolute certainty that she would help them through it. My name is Kaida, she said, her voice calm and confident. I'm here to help. Tell me everything. As they talked, she began organizing resources and coordinating treatment options. Kaida thought about the wallet that had changed her life, about a small piece of lost property that had led to friendships, purpose, and understanding that life's value wasn't measured in years, but in moments that mattered. She still had the wallet kept in her desk drawer. David had tried to take it back, but she'd insisted on keeping it. A reminder that sometimes the smallest things lead to the biggest changes. That evening, after helping the Talarian family stabilize their child's condition, Kaida returned to her quarters. She updated her personal log, documenting the case, noting parallels to David and Mira's situation. Then she opened a video channel. Mira answered, now 13 years old, full of energy and plans. Kaida, guess what? I got accepted into the advanced science program at school. I'm going to study xenobiology and medicine. That's wonderful. I want to help find cures for rare diseases, like the one I had, like the ones you deal with every day. Mira's expression was serious beyond her years. I want to make sure other kids have the chance I got. The chance you and Dad gave me. You're going to be amazing at it. You have to come visit soon. Dad's birthday is next month. We're having a big party. Everyone you've helped wants to come thank you. I don't need thanks. Well, you're getting it anyway. Also, I made you another carving. You'll have to wait until you visit to see it, though. They talked for an hour, about school and work and plans for the future. When the call ended, Kaida felt the warmth of connection, of belonging to something larger than herself. She looked at the carvings on her desk. The dragon given for luck, the dragon and human working together, the family standing under stars. Each represented a stage in her journey from isolated security officer to someone who understood that the longest lives gained meaning from the shortest moments. Outside her window, Harmony Point rotated slowly, a wheel of light in the darkness. Thousands of species, millions of individuals, each with their own stories. Some would need help. Some she would reach. Some she would save. And sometimes, rarely but powerfully, someone would save her right back, would remind her that family wasn't about biology or species or lifespan. It was about who you chose to fight for, who chose to fight for you, and the promises kept across the vast distances between planets and people. Kaida pulled out the worn leather wallet from her drawer, tracing its edges with one clawed finger. Inside were David's old notes preserved as reminders, the desperate calculations, the crossed-out leads, the final coordinates that had led them to Dravon. At the bottom, in her own handwriting, she'd added one more note. Found one lost wallet. Lost nothing. Gained everything that matters. She returned the wallet to its place of honor and prepared for the next day's challenges. More families would need help. More cases would demand her attention. More lives would hang in the balance. But she wouldn't face them alone. She had a team, a purpose, and a family scattered across stars. She had learned that strength came not from isolation but from connection. That the longest life was meaningless without moments that mattered. That sometimes the universe conspired to put you exactly where you needed to be, exactly when someone needed you there, all because a human dropped his wallet and a dragon chose to care. In her pocket, the wooden carvings rested against her scales, warm and constant, reminders that hope was always worth carrying, that promises were always worth keeping, and that family was always worth fighting for. No matter how long the journey, how impossible the odds, or how vast the space between hearts choosing to beat in sync. Kaida looked at her schedule for tomorrow. 3 new cases, 2 follow-ups, and 1 particularly challenging situation requiring off-station coordination. It would be a long day, a hard day. She smiled. Some days were worth being hard. Some fights were worth the struggle. And some wallets once found changed everything. The galaxy was vast. Life was short, whether you lived decades or centuries. But meaning, real meaning, came from the moments between, from the choices to help, to care, to fight for others when they couldn't fight for themselves. Kaida had learned that lesson written in desperate notes and wooden carvings. Had learned it carrying hope across volcanic worlds and through the darkness of space. Had learned it watching a small girl smile despite dying, because her father promised everything would be okay. She had learned, finally and completely, that being dragon didn't mean being separate. It meant having the strength to build bridges, to carry burdens, to fly through fire when someone needed saving. And she would spend her long life doing exactly that. 1 wallet, 1 family, 1 moment at a time. Outside, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. Inside, a dragon hybrid security officer prepared to face another day of impossible situations and desperate families. Armed with experience, compassion, and 3 wooden carvings that reminded her why every single moment mattered. The story that began with a lost wallet had no ending. It continued forward, each day adding new chapters. Each person helped becoming part of a larger story about connection, sacrifice, and the transformative power of choosing to care when it would be easier to walk away. Kaida had walked toward the wallet instead, and in doing so, had found the only thing that made a long life worth living: purpose wrapped in hope, carried across impossible distances, delivered to those who needed it most. Just like a dragon carrying precious cargo through fire, just like a father racing across the galaxy for his daughter, just like a girl giving a wooden carving to a stranger and calling it luck. The wallet was just the beginning. What came after was everything, and Kaida wouldn't trade a single moment of it for all the centuries in the universe.